So we had a very cumbersome process. I've been there 17 years and it had been going on for 25 years probably, but it was a binder system. And so the nurses were having to carry around these huge binders. They were all different, so we were looking at a different binder every time. There was no consistency. And that was just very hard on the nurses. For that program, it was primarily the number of nurses entering the program. And as time went on, with generations of nurses changing, our numbers were going down. The newer nurses were not interested in doing that big old binder and lugging it around. We actually found Staff Garden at a conference. And so we talked with the people there. It was very intriguing. And several of the people that I was with were also part of the committee that reviews all the binders. And so we talked to them, and afterwards we invited Staff Garden back to our hospital to give a presentation. And all of the committee was there, as well as many of the clinical nurses, to review the program and then to get feedback from them, from the directors and the nurses for the program. Well, we actually had very good buy-in from the beginning. There were some hesitation from some people about going all electronic. It's always hard to change. And many of the directors had been there probably from almost the beginning of that process with the binders. So it's hard to let go of something like that and the unknown. But that was probably the biggest hurdle. Being able to make it easier for the nurses, easier access. They didn't have to bring their binders to the nursing administration office, and the directors didn't have to all come down to the office every time they wanted to view a binder. It was just easier access and storing things digitally, not having to carry things around. I think that was the biggest plus of this. So initially, we had some hurdles. We had some issues with uploading documents. They were technical issues. But once we got past that, we went from around 75 nurses to over 100 nurses starting their application. That's one of the biggest things that we have seen, and nurses are loving it. And I'm getting a lot of calls asking about it. We've just seen a more excitement with the nurses about leveling. They're very positive about it. Yes, we all see the advantages to this, and it's their nurses that are getting excited about it. And it's a much easier process for us, the directors and managers that are part of the committee that are reviewing it. We're excited about the much easier process. We can sit at our desk and review the applications. In the way of education, possibly getting the word out there, it's on our intranet, of course, and we did a lot of education about it during the rollout, I guess. And I talk about it in new nurse orientation every month. And so, but we don't really have to do anything. The nurses are talking amongst themselves. And we had one entire department that didn't have one new nurse leveling. Their entire department is now leveling, and that's about 10 people. So word of mouth is happening all by itself. 8 months into it and having a little bit to overcome in the beginning, we have not really delved that much into the data yet. What we do have is we can see at a glance the number of nurses that are leveling, which before it was such a manual process of having to count them, and we have varying levels, level 3, level 4, and so that's all right there on the web page. And so we can see that. We know exactly how many people have applied, how many people have successfully leveled. There's also an e-portfolio part of the application, and so that's been of great value. The program also helps them put together a resume, and so that's been very helpful because we do require that as part of our leveling program. So I would say mainly the data of just the numbers of nurses at this point. And also, I should say, the number of certifications, number of those that have BSNs, because we're required to track those things for Magnet. Mm-hmm. So that's also, I guess, part of the data that we are going to be able to have at our fingertips. it'll be right there for us. I mean, we do have to submit an increase, we have to show an increase in the number of BSNs, we have to show an increase in the number of nurses that have certifications, and of course in our leveling program, they get points for doing those things. So it encourages the nurses to do those things. So it's only helping us meet our magnet criteria, and it's right there on the webpage. It's amazing. Staff Garden support, I can't say enough for Alana, if that's okay if I say that.
Please do.
She is the most patient person I can ever imagine. But it was, it was very well structured. It was a very structured rollout for education. It was education for the clinical nurses applying to the program, education for the committee members, education for myself as the administrator of the program, and then it was all recorded so that all the new nurses coming on board from now on will have access to that training. And the support has also been top-notch. Never have I had to wait for an answer. We did have trouble getting the clinical nurses to call the Staff Garden help desk. They wanted to call me, but we have finally gotten them used to calling, and they are amazing too. They have helped quite a bit, so it's been great. Again, we're still new to the program, and so those of us on the committee that are managers and directors and some clinical nurses, we're having a hard time letting go of our former process where we have them submit quarterly, and then we meet quarterly and review the applications, whereas the nurses are submitting all the time. I mean, when they finish their application, they're submitting it, and so it's sitting there. So I'm hoping that maybe once we get a year under our belt, that we will be able, as the committee, to start adapting to the online program and be able to just review applications as they come through and, to let them know that they've leveled. And I guess that would be our biggest hurdle right now is adapting to the online system. I would definitely say try an online program. It has really elevated our leveling program for sure and taken it into the 21st century and meeting the needs of those younger nurses that are so digitally inclined and that weren't interested at all in the binder process. But now that it's online, it's attracting more nurses, they're more engaged. So it's definitely worth it to move to an online program. And of course, Staff Garden, I think, is wonderful.